So we have used loops along with counting variables, and now I want to combine loops, counting variables, and branch statements all together in one. So let's go ahead and come here to for loops, and let's say new Python file, and let's say call it loops and branches. Okay. So what are we going to do here? Well, maybe we can have a program. Let me write this down. Write a program that will ask the user to enter in letters of the alphabet, print out how many vowels they entered in. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, we need to ask the user to enter in letters from the alphabet. So I want to put here letters. Our variable is equal to raw input. Remember, we want to use raw input when we're taking in strings. So we could say raw input, enter a letter. Okay, and we want to do this repeatedly, right? So we want to use a loop, and now which kind of loop should we use? Well, let's say we want to do it 10 times. Okay, so we know how many iterations. Let's do a for loop, for I in range 10. And if you know how many iterations it needs to run, you could write it using a while loop, but a for loop is easier to write, right? It just requires one line of code. A while loop, to run the same thing, you would have to say I is equal to 0. Then you have to say while I is less than 10. And then inside the loop, you'd have to do I is equal to I plus 1. Right? So here, to set up the loop, we would need 3 lines of code. But here, with the for loop, we just need 1 line of code. And in computer science, shorter is always better. Okay, so the for loop is what you want to use when you know how many iterations, because it is shorter. So let's get rid of that while loop. We come over to here, and yeah, now we have the person entering the letters in. So let's go ahead and run this program. I'm going to enter in some letters, and it ends. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to print out, I want to count, but not count how many letters they entered in, because I know, right, it's right here, they entered in 10 letters. What I want to count is how many vowels they entered in. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and come out here, and I'm going to create a variable called vowels, and I'm going to set it equal to 0, because it's going to be my counting variable. And remember, the formula for counting variables is you create the variable outside of the loop, you set it equal to its first value, and inside of the loop we have that variable on both sides of the equal sign, vowels plus 1. Okay, and then we add or subtract however much we want to add or subtract by. So every time they enter in a letter, I want to increase my vowels variable. But you see, the way that this is going to work is it's going to increase my vowels variable every iteration of this for loop. Okay? And so if I go ahead and I print and I say you entered str vowels plus, say, number of vowels. Okay. If I go ahead and run this, right, you can see that it's not really going to work. Okay, so it says I entered in 10 vowels, right? But I entered a Q here, a W here, I entered in an R and a T, right? So I obviously didn't enter in 10 vowels. And why is it saying I entered in 10 vowels? Because I'm incrementing. We call this incrementing. Incrementing is when you increase a variable by a certain amount. So let me put here, incrementing is when you increase a variable by a certain amount. Okay, so in this case we're incrementing by 1, right? Okay, so anyways, I'm incrementing the vowel variable every iteration of this for loop, right? But I don't want to do it every iteration of the for loop. I only want to do it under a certain condition, right? I only want to do this if they entered in a vowel up here. So how can I do that? I could say if, right? And so only do it if letters is equal to A. I'm going to do single quotes, right? So we use single quotes for letters. We use double quotes for words, okay, for strings. So I'm going to say if letters is equal to the letter A, and I'm going to put or. Okay, so this is the or operator. So we have a couple more operators. Let me go ahead and put it right here, right? We have Boolean operators, and we have or. I'm going to put here or, and. Oh, I'm sorry. No. In Python, I was thinking in Java, right? So, no, we're going to say or. We just write down the word or. And we also have and. Okay. So I want to put here if letters is equal to A, or letters is equal to the next vowel, which is going to be E, or letters is equal to U, or letters is equal to I, or letters is equal to O, or I think that's it actually. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to put a colon there at the end, right? And so it's only going to do the incrementation of vowels if it's one of the letters, right? So this long expression here with the or, well, the way that or works is kind of just like in English, right? If any of these are true, if that Boolean expression is true, or that Boolean expression is true, or that Boolean expression is true, then the whole expression is evaluated to true, and then it does this, right? So it will do line 12 if I typed in an A or a E or a U or any of the other vowels. So let's go ahead and try this again. I do Q, I do E, that's 1. I do U, that's another one, that's 2. I do I, that's 3. That's 4. So it prints out you entered 4 vowels. Right? So what you can do with these counting variables is you can also add if statements so that they only execute when you want them to execute. Okay. So let's go ahead and stop here, and we'll maybe do one more practice before I ask you to create your own loop with the counting variable using a branch statement.